He doesn't want to be muted. Take the phone and go do what you're gonna do.
What you know?
Ah. All right. What up, fellas? What up, party people? I guess. Welcome to Friday night's edition of Mike Your Mentor. This is Man Up Friday, where we discuss the lessons learned in this profound workbook, The Quest for Authentic Manhood by Dr. Robert M. Lewis. And this book, this workbook, this course, right, it changed my life. I was at a point where I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue to be married. I really didn't know who I was. I was struggling with identity, and I was lost. And this came into my life at an appropriate time. And the saying, you don't know what you don't know, is extremely true. And the things that I learned through going through this course, as it pertains to manhood and what that looks like, especially in Western society, man, it was eye-opening, and I was able to start connecting all these dots from my past to my future, and how I thought about things and the way that I was handling things in my life. And I could see these big gaping holes in my life that I need to work to start to fix, in these roots from my past that I needed to be brave enough to search for, and then to rip out. So that's what we do here on Fridays. We go through the content on this because it's life changing. You know, it's funny. One of the things I talk about that I learned from this course is part of having a manhood ceremony, right? Especially for our sons or even our daughters, and what that looks like. And last night we started the first week leading up to my son's manhood ceremony, because he's going to be 18 here in a couple weeks. And this is part 2 out of 3 in the strategy, or I guess the series, or the what's the word I'm looking for, the framework that I'm using for him in his life. And this started when he was 13. And my point is we started watching these videos last night, this series of videos, and him and then another friend and a father that's doing this with us. And afterwards, I just asked them what they thought, and the friend said, you don't. He said those exact words: "You don't know what you don't know." I would have never even thought of this before seeing these videos, and having them ask these questions, right? And here he is, this young man who's about to be 18 and soon go off into the world for himself. And if there wasn't a strategic plan in place to show him what manhood looks like, he'd be left to figure that out on his own, which can be very costly and very, very dangerous to our emotional well-being, to our physical well-being, and to our mental well-being. So that's what we do here on Friday nights, is we dig into this content. If you're watching the replay, welcome. If you're new to this page, somehow you came to this page from something else, somebody shared this with you, thank them, right? And I don't mean thank them because I'm special, but thank them because they cared enough about you to want you to be able to see this information that we talk about, because it's life-changing, and it's what this world needs right now, especially our society, because men have ditched their responsibility as fathers, ditched their responsibility as husbands, ditched their responsibility as leaders in the community, right? Fair or not, we have a higher calling on our life. We've been called to a certain responsibility as men, in because of a lot of different things. We've lost our way in what that looks like, and how do we honor that responsibility and accept that, and how does that play out in our lives. And I submit to you that that the stuff that we go through tonight and in the following weeks after this will help you figure that out, and will give you a clear picture of what that looks like, and will have you realize some things that you've never thought of before that will transform your life if you continue this journey with me and the other people that check this out. So welcome. I'm the host. I'm Mike, your mentor. And why am I doing this, right? Because I lived a crazy, dysfunctional, and sometimes tragic a life. Don't feel sorry for me. There was a plan for all that. I believe that God had, well, He's doing it right now. He's took all that stuff that I went through, all the tough stuff that I had to deal with, and He's allowing me to use that to make a difference in other people's lives through this, through some mentoring of some younger guys that I meet with, and even some older guys, and just the different platforms that He's allowed me to have. So the goal of this page is to take the seeds of wisdom that have been sown in me by other men throughout my life and through the experiences that I've had, and share those with you guys to change the course of manhood, right? And to bring honor back to being a man. And that doesn't that responsibility falls on us. That responsibility falls on you. That responsibility falls on this guy. So when you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror, it's up to you. And you got to make a decision of how you're going to live your life that day. And no matter what you face, what kind of choices are you going to make? Are you going to make a choice to take the road least traveled, the tough road, right? The road of honor, the road of character, the road of integrity? Or are you going to take the easy road and bail out and do what's easy and quit? Or, abdicate your throne, not accept the responsibility, not accept the responsibility for your kids, not accept the responsibility for your wife, not accept the responsibility that you have in your marriage, not accept the responsibility maybe that you have at work with your boss, who you feel is too hard on you, right? And that very well could be the truth. But you got a choice, and you can do something about it. So I'm not here to preach at you. I'm here to love you, and I'm here to be your friend. And you say, well, that's crazy. You don't even know me. I don't need to know you. But I guarantee I know the kind of things that you're dealing with. I guarantee I know the kind of things that you're facing, because I've seen it in enough men over these last couple of years to know that these things are not uncommon. Every man experiences them at some point, at some degree, one or some degree or another. Wisdom is wisdom. It doesn't discriminate. It's not biased. It's not prejudiced. It doesn't care what color you are. It doesn't care how much money you make. It doesn't matter what you look like. None of that. And that's really what this is about. So I'd encourage you to bust out a pen and a paper, maybe your phone if you're like me, and take notes on Evernote or something like that, because something's going to pique your interest tonight, right? And I would suggest to you that as me personally, as a believer in Jesus Christ, that God is revealing something to you, and that something is what you need to go deeper on. And if you're brave enough to go deeper on that and to look that thing in the eye, whatever it is, right, you'll experience freedom on the other side of that thing. Freedom like you've never felt before. Freedom to be who you were created to be. Freedom to show up in your marriage. Freedom to show up in your other relationships. To take off the mask. To stop lying to yourself about how you feel or what you think about things. Oh, that doesn't matter. Oh, I'll get over it. Or no big deal. Those types of things that we say to ourselves as men, right? Instead of just embracing, like, yeah, that freaking hurt. Like, that sucked. Like, I'm pissed. Like, I'm upset. Like, I'm angry. I can't believe they would say that to me. I can't believe they would do that to me. I can't believe they stole this from me. Whatever the situation, just acknowledging it for what it is, right? Getting in touch once again with our hearts. Because when we start to do that, we become this brand new person. And that person that we become is extremely attractive. It's extremely attractive to our wives. It's extremely attractive to the other people that we're around each and every day, because they see something different in you, right? Because in this world of Facebook, of Instagram, of social media, for all the good that it's done, it's helped to propagate, and I think that's a word, to propagate, to push this fakeness out there, right? Of, oh, look at me, this is my life and how great it is, right? Life is tough sometimes. It ain't always roses. It ain't always nice dinners. There's a lot of struggle in life for a lot of different reasons, right? We're not here to get into a philosophy. Oh my gosh, I can't talk tonight. Uh, a philosophical debate. There we go, about that. But just to recognize, right, that we're more and more becoming a society where we only show maybe what's good or what we want. Where we're not real. We're not vulnerable, right? Especially as men, we're very far removed from that. And I know for a fact that there is tremendous power in vulnerability, in showing up as yourself and sharing who you really are. Not only with other people, that's secondary, but with yourself, right? Because you can't do that with other people if you don't do that with yourself first. So tonight we're talking about mentors in this section and for the next upcoming section. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into this, and this is going to be some good stuff, because mentoring is a huge part of the game. You're never too old or too young to have a mentor, and this was one of my favorite sections from this workbook. So share my screen with you guys, and then here we go. All right, chicka chicka chow. All right, I have named this appropriately 3 Cheers for Mentors. So I'm a firm believer that no matter what age you are, you should be a mentor to someone who's younger than you, and you should have mentors. And we'll get into why that is inside of this. But these 3 pictures are 3 mentors that I've had in my life. So the guy up in the left has been a business mentor to me for some time now. His name is Sam Ovens. He runs a consulting company. So I've got a mentor in my business life, actually more than one. And then the gentleman on the right has been a spiritual mentor for me over the last couple of years. He's no longer alive, but that's Dr. Chuck Missler. An amazing man, an amazing teacher, and who's taught me a lot, a tremendous amount. And then the gentleman at the bottom here goes by the name, not goes by the name. What is that? His name is Bob Vanderpool, and he's been a mentor of mine since I've been a young kid. He's been a coach to me at times. His son was my age, so we grew up together. And he was a great and tremendous example of what a real man looked like, and one of the first real men in my life, right? That showed me how you're supposed to treat your family, how you're supposed to take care of your kids, how you're supposed to interact with people in society. And he was the epitome of honor growing up. In every situation that I was able to watch him act in. So I'm a firm believer that you should have a mentor, at least one mentor. If you can seek out mentors in every area of your life, even better, right? Because there's stuff we all don't know. We all have blind spots, And the 2 gentlemen on top. Hold on a second, I could get something out of the oven. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Don't want the house to burn down. Cooking a pizza for the kids. So you know the other thing with mentors is you can find mentors everywhere. Growing up, I had mentors in books that I read. You know, the guys at the top, they're mentors. You know that through other mediums. You know, videos that I've watched online. You know, Skype calls that I've been able to be a part of. You know, it doesn't always have to be physically in person, especially with today's technology. So let's jump into this. Right, so this section is going to be entitled "The Awesome, Empowering Impact of an Older Man." I need to do one thing here a second. Sorry. I need to see this. Don't burn the food. Yeah, that's right, Rob. I won't be burning the food. Good call. All right, back to this. All right, so the first thing is, right, the vision of words. And we talk a lot about words on this page and the power that they have, the how words are able to encourage, right, and to give a person hope. In that's the great thing about a mentor, right? Is they sow that vision into you. They empower you and equip you to look at the big picture, or I should say, a bigger picture than what you're seeing, right? Because they're looking through 2020 glasses. They've been there, they've done that, whereas we are not as we move forward. You know, locking on to a life. You know, what is this next one, or the subcategory? So, younger men want and need the blessing of older men, and that's where this comes in. And I think about my own life and how true that was, especially growing up, probably more so than most kids, at least when I was a kid, because divorce wasn't as commonplace as it is to now. It was growing, but it wasn't nothing like it is now. You know, where I just wanted an older guy to tell me that I was doing a good job. You know, that I had what it takes, that I had the stuff. You know, and every man needs that. And we've talked about this before. We have gone, or we're born with this natural inclination inside of ourselves to want to be chosen, right? To want to be chosen by our parents, to want to be chosen by other people, to want to be chosen by our Maker, and that desire doesn't go away, right? It carries on out throughout our lives. You know, I think, you know, even into marriage, right? We want to be chosen by our partner, and you know, it's just something that it's a button that needs to be pushed. It's something that needs to be fed inside every man, and it's important to get the blessing of an older man on our lives, whether that comes from our father, whether that comes from our grandfather, whether that comes from someone outside the family. So what we're going to do is we're going to explore this rich concept called mentoring and the importance. So the first question we got to ask is from dad to whom, right? So typically in most men's lives, their dads are going to be their first mentors. But what do we do after we leave the home and we make a break from dad? You know, where do we get that life experience? Where do we get that life, learn those life skills, that the application? You know, and where we get that from is we get that from having a mentor, from seeking them out actively, because dad can only take us so far. And the reason dad can only take us so far is for a couple of reasons. One, you know, when we tend to get around 17, 18 years old, you know, that ego starts to grow, and we start to think that in our quest to be our own man, that we don't need dad as much. So maybe his words don't play a big as role in our lives as they did growing up, and we place more emphasis and more importance on what somebody else, another older gentleman, might think. And I'm just reminded of times in my life where we've all seen this effect, right? Where you have somebody, think about in your life where you had a friend who was really close to you, and then all of a sudden they started hanging out with a new group of people, or they got around somebody that was older than them, right? That sort of took them under their wing and started, pouring into them and spending time with them. And you were no longer seeing that person as much. And sometimes that can be a good influence, and sometimes that can be a bad influence. But right, it's that magnetic call to wanna live, or sorry, that magnetic call to want to learn from somebody else other than your father, right? To see what else is out there. And every son has to leave his dad. It's part of growing up. It's part of being a man. I was just talking to someone tonight. My son had prom, and we were taking pictures, and I was talking to this dad, and we were talking about how it's different this generation, and how he's got two boys that have already left the home, and then his daughter was actually the one going to prom with my son, and he was talking about how difficult that is because that's the youngest one, and how much the world has changed, and how he was kind of feeling bad because he was not giving his daughter what a lot of other parents, or I'm sorry, not his daughter, one of his sons, what a lot of other parents were. And this son in particular was going to college, and the dad was making the son pay his own rent, whereas he was staying with some other boys, and the other parents, and he knew the other parents were paying the rent of their children. And I'm not telling the story because I'm being critical of that, but because he was stating how in the long run he thinks he's doing his son a favor by making his son take responsibility, and he doesn't want to be one of the parents that takes care of his kid until he's into his 30s or something like that. Um, you know, so it goes back to this point, right? Like, as men, every son has to leave his dad, and we have to go out into the world and stake our claim for what is ours, and do things on our own. Secondly, male mentors are specialists. Got a little ahead of myself. You know, um, I think about the different mentors in the different areas of my life, right? I think about my business mentor, and just what he's been able to teach me in terms of business, right? Like, that's his specialty. And then I think about my spiritual mentor, and just how all of the things that he's learned, or that he learned over his 80 something years of life, all that wisdom that he had in his one subject, which was the Bible, that I'm able to glean from and learn from him. And you can't get that type of specialty without having a mentor. Our higher education is built all around that, right? When you're going to school to get your thesis, or to get your PhD, and in some master's programs, you're learning under a specific professor, and you're learning this specialty of this one subject. And there's a saying by Benjamin Franklin, and it gets butchered all the time, but it's master, or jack of all trades, master of none. And that's actually false. What Benjamin Franklin really said is, he said, be a jack of all trades, but a master of one. Right? Master one thing, become a specialist at one thing, but know about several other things. So that's kind of a little rabbit trail. Let's bring it back. So now I want to share 5 comments about a mentor, and what they look like, right? What a good mentor looks like. He's one who supports rather than competes with you, right? You don't want a mentor that's that's competing with you, that's trying to go after the same things that you are, where they could turn into an unhealthy competition. They're there to support you and to pour into you. through a multitude of different ways. Two, he's one who is primarily a cheerleader, not a critic. I think of the mentor I showed you at the bottom, Mr. Vanderpool, and I just think of all the times he cheered me on in my life. Man, I think of this time when I came to the gym to play basketball, and because I needed to get out of the house because some crazy stuff was going on, and he just happened to be there, and he could just see the look on my face. I didn't even have to say anything, and he just said, "Hey, come with me," and he pulled me aside and took me, to like a little private area of the gym, or one that there wasn't a bunch of people, and he just started to talk to me, and he's like, "Hey, man, tell me what's going on." He's like, "I can see it all over your face," and like I couldn't even get it out, just the fact that he was willing to do that. I mean, I just started crying, and eventually I was able to mumble the words out, and he just listened to me, and he gave me a hug, and he just told me I had what it takes to get through this and to keep on pushing through. And he had a little bit of advice for me, but he was always a constant cheerleader to me, in telling me that he was proud of me, and that I could do great things, right? And that's what we need, not someone who's going to criticize us and criticize our ideas, and put us down. So 3, and then I can't see that because of this thing right here. All right, boom, 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 boom. All right, still can't see it. All right, he is one who seeks to encourage the development of your gifts while seeking to protect you. I think it says from costly mistakes. You know, and I just gave you an example of that, right? Mr. Vanderpool. Well, actually, I didn't. Kind of along the lines, right? Mr. Vanderpool, my whole life, he's spoken things about me, and talked about me, and encouraged the different gifts that I have inside of me. And at times, he's protected me by sharing things with me. And like I said, mentors, they're looking at life from 2020 vision, right? They've been through it already, so they're able to point out blind spots or things that you potentially can't see when you're going into an area down a road where you don't know where all the potential potholes are. And that's the job of a good mentor, right? Is to say, hey man, have you thought about this? Hey, I know you're doing this, but I want to challenge you a little bit about the way that you're thinking about it, or the way that you're carrying it on. And what's coming, what God's bringing to my mind is someone that I'm helping walk through a life situation where a lot of turmoil in their marriage, and their wife isn't sure that she wants to be married, and just having to remind him that the grass isn't greener on the other side of the fence, that the problems that he's working on with himself are still going to be problems that he's going to take into any relationship, and that it's better for him to work those problems out in this relationship than it would be to walk away. And just to remind him too, like, and I don't know, maybe you're watching this and that's your situation, and I've had to remind myself of this because I've been in that position, right, where I wanted to quit and give up. But as men, we got to remember, this is more about our marriage, right, with our wife. This is about our kids. This is about our grandkids. This is about, the third and the fourth and the fifth generation that are going to come after us, and our family tree and our legacy. And the way we decide to live our lives, whether we want to recognize it or not, is going to have an impact and an influence on them. And that's why it's worth continuing to fight the good fight, and to stay in marriage and stay engaged, to work through things, and to let our wives see our hearts again. That's what they fell in love with, is our hearts. And then because of stupid stuff we do, we suppress our hearts, and we get numb, and then we become a different person. and then it's easy to fall out of love with us, right? But that's another topic, so I digress. Back to this. Point 4. He is one who admires and delights in you because he instinctively recognizes your value and untapped. I gotta check my book because I can't see what that says. Untapped potential. All right. Yeah, you need somebody that recognizes what you're good at and is going to encourage you to move forward. In those giftings. I think of a young man that I've been meeting with on a weekly basis, and just all the giftings that he has, and watching him go through this period of transition where he's trying to figure out, what does he do with his life? How does he take the different things that he's passionate about and match them up with the right job or the right opportunity to get him where he sees himself in 5 years, in terms of what he wants to do work wise, right? And it's been a struggle these last couple of months for him to try to figure that out, and now that's finally through patience and through taking action, it's finally coming to fruition, right? God has opened some doors, and it's exactly the opportunity that he needed and that he wanted, and I know he would say that I've played a part in that, right? By just encouraging him to pursue different things and to think about that and to not settle, I guess is what I want to say. So number 5, he is not necessarily a close friend, but he is a close confidant. On both sides of this, one with being a mentor and one with having a mentor. I think about the conversations that I've had in both areas, and in being a mentor, it's my job to love on these guys, but at the same time, what that love looks like is sometimes it's hard truth, right? It's hard truth about how they're looking at a situation, or how they're choosing to act. Maybe they're acting selfishly, or they're being selfish in a situation, and I need to point that out to them. Or I think at times in my life where my mentors had to say some hard things to me because of the way that I was acting, or going towards something that was flashing warning signs to him, but me, I didn't recognize them or see them at all, and that's where the confidant thing comes into play, and that's why there needs to be this boundary between friend and confidant, because it's very easy to get into a friend zone, and then with that comes certain emotions which can stop you from telling somebody the whole truth, right? It can complicate things a little bit, but when you're their confidant, they know that you have their best intentions in mind, so that gives you a little bit more freedom to speak truth into their life, and for them to, here's the key, for them to be more receptive to that, right? All right, moving on. So number 5, is mentoring different than discipleship? Both mentoring and discipleship, they seek to impart wisdom from one person to another, but the main difference is that discipleship has a spiritual center and component to it. So if you're a spiritual person, maybe that's what you're looking for, is that discipleship aspect of that, and I think those two can come together. A lot of the guys that I've mentored, there's been different spiritual components of the mentoring and how that's carried out. So 6, and then we are going to wrap it up here. So what a mentor brings to the table. 5 things for you to think about. 1, they bring wisdom through experience. right? This isn't this a good mentor isn't going to give you theory. They're going to give you what's lived. Remember that 2020 vision that they're operating from, because they've lived through these things. They're able to tell you the truth. And I think of a mentor that I had along the way that talked to me about marriage and talked to me about the importance of having a frequent date night. Talked to me about the importance of having some sort of quarterly overnight experience where I got away with my wife, and the importance of trying to plan getaways around important dates such as your anniversaries or milestones in your marriage. And he gave me a map for that and what that looked like, right, and talked to me about that in detail. And it was something that he himself had mapped out with him and his wife. And he told me that they would go away at the beginning of every new year for a weekend, and they would map out what their year looked like, and when they were going to get away and what nights they were going to make a priority, for each other. Because in marriage, a lot of times you get in routine and you're not intentional about planning stuff and making time for one another to have fun and to get out and get out of the regular monotony that comes with routine and kids and all that stuff during the week. And I think about my own marriage right now, and me and my wife are making it we've said intentionally this summer that on our date nights we're going to go someplace new every single time. And we've been doing that for a couple weeks now, and it's been a lot of fun. Just having my wife go on these little adventures with me and us trying these different places to eat. And there's something exciting about that, right? That of having my wife wanting to participate in these little adventures, because I think as men, we yearn for adventure, right? In a bunch of different forms. So wisdom through experience. 2, right? Mentors bring warnings to the table. And we've talked about that a lot tonight, but I can't overemphasize this part of the importance of having a mentor. There were times in my life where mentors warned me of things, and I didn't listen. And I'll give you an example, right? I had a mentor who was brave enough to talk to me about sex and about waiting until I was married. And I just blew that off as I didn't blow it off, but I didn't take it for what it was worth, and I didn't recognize the value that he was telling me. And from my own personal experience, right, growing up in the church, in my day and age, all you heard was you save yourself for marriage. You don't have sex before you're married. And if you asked why, you were just told because that's what the Bible says, right? Which is good and all, but no one ever went. But right, that's just on the surface level. No one ever went deeper with me and really talked about that. And it's one of the biggest regrets, if I have regrets in my life. And the reason why it's a regret is because now that I'm older, I realize that's the one gift you can only give away one time. And I was speaking to a group of kids one time, or a group of young men, and we got on this subject, and there was a whole bunch of talk, right? And this example came to my mind, and I don't remember where I got it from, but I took this cup out and I passed it around, and there was, I think, like 12 or 13 guys, and we all took turns spitting in this cup, right, as it was passed around. And then I came to the last person, and I said to them, I said, okay, in this little exercise, I'm coming to you, and this cup represents the best of what I have. And now I've given it away, and here we are. You're the person that I finally want to be with, and this is what I'm bringing to the table, and this is what my cup is filled with, and now I'm asking you to drink it, because that's my best, and that's what I want to give you. And it was a real powerful analogy, right, of what we have the opportunity to bring to a relationship, to a marriage relationship. And no one ever went that deep with me growing up. They just said, you don't do it because this is this is what the Bible says, this is why. And if I could go back, that's what I would want to bring to my marriage. So that's just an example of a warning. I didn't listen to it, and it's caused me some problems in my marriage. For a multitude of reasons, stuff that we won't get into tonight. We'll probably get into that later on a different subject. But back to the task at hand. What a mentor also brings is a belief in you. Man, all these times in my life are flashing before me where from Mr. Vanderpool to different coaches to different men just coming alongside me and telling me that I have what it takes, right? Just to hear those words, especially when you want to give up, when you want to quit, when you want to throw in the towel, whether it's in your marriage, whether it's in the pursuit of a goal or a dream. It's like being hit with a lightning bolt, right? Like I gotta imagine, you just go through the roof. I remember one time I had this opportunity, this business opportunity when I was like, 18, and growing up a lot, my grandpa would give me a hard time about not being he'd always say to me, he'd always say, you're no ditch digger. He's like, you better learn how to do something with those smarts you got. And I would always tell him, I can dig ditches with the best of them. I just don't, I'm not passionate about that. That doesn't excite me, but if I need to get my hands dirty and do that, I can, I had this opportunity come up, and I remember I had to give this presentation, and I was walking out the door, and he said, hey, hold on a second. He said, come here. And I came back to where he was sitting in the chair, and he goes, hey, I just want you to know, I'm proud of what you're doing, and I believe that you can make this work. And I was like on cloud 10. Just the fact that my grandpa would say that to me, because he wasn't usually, he was positive, but that was a different level. And the confidence that gave me to go out and to do that presentation and to be like, man, like it's good to know that someone else believes in me. It's not just myself, right? Like I could run through a wall right now. That's what it felt like, and there's been times where my mentors have told me, that they've believed in me, and it's like it's like being hooked up to a battery, right? You get that extra boost, to get you over that hump, to push you further in your life. And then here's the fourth one, and then we got one more. They cheer you for your achievements. It feels good to celebrate wins with other people, especially men that have come alongside you and helped you get to whatever goal or whatever marker in your life that you've been pushing towards, and to just to celebrate that camaraderie that comes with men, in acknowledgement from older men that they see the success that you're having, whether it's in your marriage, whether it's in your relationship with your kids, whether it's in your place of work, right? It's just we need it. Goes back to that thing I talked about at the very beginning. Our need to feel chosen, right? To feel chosen. Our need to feel chosen. And then the last one, right? In some instances, what a mentor brings to the table is a proven hero. And I just think once again of Mr. Vanderpool. He was a hero to me growing up. I mean, I'm pretty sure there were things in his life that in his marriage and stuff that he didn't get right. Um, but here was somebody finally in my life that tried, that went the extra mile, that lived a selfless life, that didn't just talk about it but actually did it, that went above and beyond. And I don't just say that lightly, because if you know my story, and I've shared this before, not having a dad made me very, very observant of what other people were doing. You know, my BS meter uh, was extremely high, and it would go off all the time because I was used to people saying stuff and then not following through. And Mr. Vanderpool never let me down. He always followed through with everything that he said he was going to do. And he always led by example. He wasn't the loudest guy, but he wasn't the loudest guy in vocally, but his actions were louder than anybody's actions. And he was a hero to me growing up, just for the way that he lived my life, that he lived his life, and that's how I wanted to live my life, and that's who I wanted to emulate. He was awesome. So, Mr. Vanderpool, if you're watching this, I've told you this before, but I just thank you for the example that you set for me and for so many men by living life the way that you did. I know it wasn't always easy, but you inspired me, and you held me to a higher standard, and you showed me that men could answer the higher calling that they had on their lives. So thank you again. So that's the last one for tonight. Once again, the proven hero. So where are we going in the weeks forward here, on why you need to continue to tune into this? We're probably going to have 3 more sessions on mentors. Next week we're going to talk about the 10 marks of a good mentor, which is going to be extremely important. We're going to talk about the impact of mentoring. And then finally we're going to get into what to do if you want to be a mentor and what to do if you lack a mentor. Right? So these are going to be actionable steps that you can take to find yourself your own mentor, or be a mentor, and what that looks like. Because I get a lot of questions from guys on both sides of the aisle, probably more so about mentoring. Actually, a guy, an older gentleman, was like, was like, I don't know how to be a mentor. What do you do? And we just kind of talked about that and what that looked like, and how you meet with somebody, and what format that can take on. So all valuable stuff. I know I've went pretty long tonight. I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me, from checking this stuff out. I truly believe that this stuff will make a tremendous difference in your life, and if you are willing to dig deep, and to really listen to not only what's being said in the message, but below the surface on what God is showing you, you're going to have tremendous breakthroughs in all areas of your life. Because once people can see your heart and you can show up authentically as yourself, there's nothing more attractive, right? So I love you guys. As always, if you need something, shoot me a message, and we'll do what we do. I will see you guys tomorrow for the Saturday shout out. Have a good night.